We are looking at why the Ford Ranger Raptor is hands down one of the most fun mid-sized trucks you can get your hands on right now. And spoiler alert, a huge part of that comes down to the fact that it delivers six-figure performance without the soul-crushing six-figure price tag. So let's talk numbers, because pricing is absolutely the most crucial point here. Look, a fully loaded press unit is going to run you about 62 grand, but you can actually grab a base model for just under $60,000. And yes, the whole shebang includes destination. In today's crazy truck market, getting a dedicated factory-built off-roader for that kind of money, it's practically unheard of. To put that into perspective, let's compare it to its closest rival. When you stack the Ranger Raptor up against the Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro, the Ranger undercuts it by roughly $8,000. Think about that. 8 grand. That's a massive competitive advantage. That difference covers a lot of gas or maybe a ridiculous overland camping setup, all while you're still behind the wheel of a top-tier machine. And that $8,000 gap, it's incredibly meaningful right now. Why? Because these aggressive off-roaders are no longer just weekend toys. Buyers aren't just taking them to the dunes on Saturday and letting them sit on Sunday. Nope. They're doing double duty. Commuting, running errands, dropping the kids off at school. So having a truck that's financially accessible and actually usable every single day is just a massive win. Which brings us to the interior. This is where it really shines as a daily driver. Honestly, this is arguably the best laid-out Ranger cabin yet. You get real physical HVAC and infotainment controls. Thank goodness, right? Literally a lifesaver when you're bouncing around on a dirt trail. The driver's seat is super comfortable. Okay, it's not cooled, slight bummer, but a minor trade-off. And crucially, the rear seat space is totally uncompromised. And speaking of those rear seats, let's look at that contrast for a second. If you're daily driving this thing, passenger space matters. The Ranger easily fits adults or those bulky child seats in the back. Now look at the Tacoma TRD Pro. Its fancy isodynamic suspension front seats are, super cool engineering, but they seriously eat into that second row. You lose valuable legroom. Ford managed to keep the Ranger passenger-friendly without losing its edge. All right, let's dig under the skin, because this is where the real mechanical magic happens. The Ranger Raptor is not just a standard truck with a lift kit slapped on. No way. It shares its underlying frame directly with the much larger, much more expensive Bronco Raptor. So they took that heavy-duty, reinforced architecture and brought it over to the midsize pickup. It's an incredibly robust foundation. But they didn't just copy and paste everything. Out back, they swapped the traditional Panhard bar for a Watts-link suspension. This is a brilliant engineering choice. You're basically trading a little bit of that extreme wheel articulation, the kind you'd want for slow rock crawling, in exchange for superior high-speed stability. That tuning tells you exactly what this truck is all about. It's meant to feel like a nimble, high-speed desert runner, not a slow rock crawler. And to run in the desert, you need power. The heartbeat of this truck is Ford's familiar 3-liter twin-turbo EcoBoost V6. We're talking about 405 horsepower paired up with a really well-matched 10-speed automatic transmission. Whether you're merging onto the highway or blasting through deep sand, you always have the right gear and plenty of punch. Now, there are a few engineering nuances compared to the Bronco Raptor that are worth pointing out. That horsepower figure is actually slightly down from the Bronco, mostly because the truck chassis requires a longer exhaust run. Also, while those awesome Fox Live valve dampers carry over to actively adjust the suspension on the fly, they are downsized to a 2.5-inch diameter instead of the Bronco's 3-inch. That was really just for packaging in the truck bed and to keep costs down. Of course, it is still a pickup truck. We have to talk about doing actual work. Towing tops out at 5,500 pounds, and payload is roughly 1,400 pounds. Now, yes, that is lower than a standard Ranger or an F-150 Raptor. You definitely give up some raw hauling muscle for that plush, long-travel suspension. But honestly, for this specific class, 5,500 pounds is completely reasonable. It's plenty for your jet skis or small weekend camper. So, bringing all these mechanical elements together, the overarching verdict from the source material is pretty awesome. It holds its own off-road, obviously, but on the pavement, it drives more like a sports truck than a traditional pickup. Because of that Watts link and the adaptive Fox dampers, it's tight, it's controlled, and it doesn't wallow through corners like dedicated off-roaders usually do. A big part of that sports truck feel comes down to the engine, which highlights a massive trend right now. A lot of competitors are downsizing to heavily boosted four-cylinder turbos, right? But the Ranger holds on to that V6. It still feels and sounds like a proper muscular Raptor. When you hit the gas, you get that deep growl and instant torque that a four-cylinder just struggles to replicate. Which leads us to maybe my favorite part of the whole package, zero six-figure anxiety. Think about it. At a real-world price under 60 grand, it completely changes your psychology as a driver. When you drop well over 100 grand on a super truck, every stray branch on a narrow trail is terrifying. You're terrified of scratching it. But the Ranger Raptor, it actually empowers you to use the truck hard in the dirt, exactly like the engineers intended, without that wallet-draining panic. So I'll leave you with this thought to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. Why spend well over 100 grand on a specialized truck that you're too afraid to scratch, basically turning it into a garage queen, when the Ranger Raptor offers this much everyday usability and high-speed fun for half the price? It's a real game changer. Thanks for joining me to break this down, and I'll catch you on the next one.